Hi everyone, just waiting for some other folks to get in. Welcome to the webinar. We will start in just a few minutes here. Looks like we have quite a few people still joining, so just bear with us and we will start in a moment. All right, greetings everyone, and thank you for attending our webcast, Communicating Your Design Vision with A360 Cloud Rendering in Revit. Before we begin, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast is designed to be very interactive between you and our presenter, and the webcast console you're looking at can be completely customized so that you can actually resize or move any of the windows that you have open. And at the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets that you can use. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can also click on the Q&A widget at the bottom of the screen and submit your question. We'll try to answer these during the webcast, but if a full answer is needed or we run out of time, we'll definitely answer these later via email as we do capture all of the questions. There are also a number of interactive buttons on the bottom of your screen that I'd like to encourage you to explore, including a series of resources for you to access that will complement today's presentation. And then lastly, we encourage you to share this event with your friends and colleagues via our social media tool on the right side of the page. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the help button below the presentation window, as it has the question mark icon and covers a lot of the technical issues. You can also make sure and just type those into the Q&A pod as well, as we can address those and help you out, because we want to make sure that you have a great webinar experience here. And then also just to let everyone know that it will be an on-demand version of this webcast. It will be available just a few days after via follow-up email. So we'll make sure and get that to you as well. And again, we encourage you to send that and share that with your colleagues and friends. So that's it for the housekeeping items. Let's officially start today's webcast. So our presenter for today's webcast is Aradhana Vaidya, Customer Success Engineer with the A360 Rendering team here at Autodesk. Today she'll be covering the basic render in the cloud workflow in Revit, detailing how to show renderings to the gallery and selecting rendering settings to create the best possible images. I'd like to thank everyone for your time, and now I will hand it over to Anna, who will be taking us through her presentation. Anna, you now have the floor.
Hello everyone. My name is Aradhana or Anna. I'm the Customer Success Engineer here at Autodesk, and today I'll be talking to you about the cloud rendering workflow in Revit. So cloud rendering, also known as A360 Rendering, is basically a service provided by Autodesk. It can help you to produce photorealistic, high-quality renderings. And why would you use the cloud? So for those of you, I mean, all of you are architects, engineers, or designers, and you create your models in Revit. You apply materials to them, you set up your lights, set up your cameras, and then you want pretty pictures, or you want to get your renderings. For those of you who have been rendering for a while, you know that renderings usually take a long time to render locally when you're doing it on your computer. And if you would like to increase the speed, then you probably have to invest in high-end hardware. By using cloud rendering, what you're doing is you are sending your data to the cloud, and the rendering happens on a collection of servers that we have here. And that way it doesn't hog up your local system. You offload your work to the cloud, and once you send your work to the cloud and the rendering happens, you can keep working locally on your Revit model. You can continue to work. So it frees up your local processor, basically. And since this is an online service, you can then access your renderings anywhere, anytime. Today we are going to be mainly talking about the cloud rendering workflow in Revit, but I just wanted to let you know that it's also available in the following products. It's available in Revit, in AutoCAD, in Fusion, Navisworks, InfraWorks, and in 3D Studio Max. So in today's webinar, we'll begin by looking at Revit, and I'll show you how you can submit your renders from Revit. We'll take a look at the render settings dialog. We will also look at the gallery and the My Renderings page. And then I'll show you the different types of renderings that are available. You can, of course, render still images. You can also render panoramas, stereo panoramas. You can do solar studies, render Illuminance images, and also render turntables. Then after I show you all of that, we will look at the re-render settings. And then I'll also show you how to adjust the exposure. And then in the end, just show you how to share your project and your images to the public gallery. And now I'm going to open up Revit. But just before I do that, just wanted to call out some of our users, Jagdeep, Sheila, Chris, and Andre, who have been kind enough to share their images with us, which we are using for the presentation. So thanks, guys. Now, here I am in Revit. When you open your Revit file, once you have created your design and your model in Revit, in your Revit project browser, if you look under 3D views, here is where you're going to see all your 3D views. For now, I have opened a sample file here that's available with Revit. And these are the names of the cameras that have been set up in this file. So, this is one of the perspective views. This is another perspective view. And these are the views that will be rendered when you render in cloud. So let's take a look at where that is. So in the ribbon up here on the top, if you click on the View tab, these are your rendering options. So let's click on Render in Cloud. As you can notice, I have already signed in into the product. Let me sign out and then show you quickly how what happens if you have not signed in. So when I click on Render in Cloud, if you haven't signed in already, it's going to ask you your Autodesk ID and password. So for those of you who are subscription users, you should already have an Autodesk ID and password. You use the same ID and password here to log in. After you log in, you'll see your login name here on the top. And then the Render in Cloud window opens up. So it's a pretty simple interface. First up is your 3D view. And these are the different cameras that I showed you in the project browser. So the 3D view is pre-populated with all of these cameras. So you can choose to render all your 3D views if you'd like. So if I click on this, it's going to select all the cameras. For now, let's pick one view and let's just render that view. So I choose the view that I want to render. The output type, when you render from Revit, there are three options available. You could either render a still image, an interactive panorama, or an Illuminance image. When we go to the gallery, I'll show you that there are many other output types available too. But from Revit, we have these three options. Let's select still image for now. Under render quality, it's very simple. It's standard and final. So What this means is you would select standard if you want to do a really quick visualization. As you can see, if I select standard and if my image size is just 1 megapixel, there are no cloud credits required. It's 0 cloud credits. So basically you would use a standard quality. If you want to do a quick visualization, just check that your lighting is correct, have a quick look at the materials, and see that things are basically working. Once you're happy with the standard image, then you would choose final and render your final image. Under image size, there are different sizes available. Let's just, for now, for this demo, let's stick with 1 megapixel. And if you render in final quality using 1 megapixel, you need 1 cloud credit. So typically, we charge 1 cloud credit for for 1 megapixel, and that's how it is right now. Maybe in the future it might change, but for now it's 1 cloud credit for every per megapixel. Then if you look at exposure, you have 2 options, advanced and native. What native means is, as a user, if you have already set your exposure values in Revit, then just go ahead and use that. If not, then leave it at advanced, and the renderer, A360 renderer, will set the exposure. For file format, there are 3 options available: PNG, JPEG, and TIFF. So if I select either a PNG or a TIFF format, I have the option of choosing alpha. What that means is when I have alpha selected, it is not going to use the background that you have set in Revit. You might want to, in some cases, want to composite this render on an existing image that you already have. So you want a cutout image, and that's when you would select alpha and the background is transparent. If you don't want to do that, then you can either choose JPEG, PNG, and not select alpha. Then the existing background of your Revit model is going to be selected. So, this out here is cloud credit. It's pretty easy to understand. It needs 1 credit. It's going to show you how much maximum you can use and how much is available. The way my account is set up, because it's an Autodesk account, I have unlimited credits. But for a subscription user or for any other user, you would see how many credits are available. You would see it right here in this window. And if you have further questions about cloud credits, you can always click on the FAQ, or you can contact the support team and we can fill you in with details. It also shows, the render dialog also shows you the estimated wait time. Now, render wait times depend on a lot of things, many factors. It definitely depends on your render quality and your image size. But it also depends on the entitlement, like whether you are a subscription user or whether you're a student. Subscription users will probably see lesser wait times, and students might see a longer wait time because their renderings are free. So that's what the estimated wait time is. There's also an option to email when complete. So if you check this box, you will receive an email in your inbox once this rendering is complete. If you don't want that, leave it out, and then click on Start Rendering. Now what's happening is all your, so you can see up here the spinner is spinning. So what's happening is your information from your Revit model is being transmitted to the cloud. We never really get your Revit model as such, but we just get the information about the mesh, materials, lights, and all of those things in order to, compute the rendering. And if you want to see where your rendering is, you would click on the Render Gallery button. So this basically takes you to our page, rendering.360.autodesk.com, and you can see that my rendering is in progress over here right now. The one that I just submitted is up here. And these are the previous renderings that were done. Now, when I clicked on this, because I have, as you can notice, I've already signed in. And because You can't see my cursor. Okay. As you can notice, I've already signed in. So that's why you're in the My Renderings tab. There's also a gallery tab, which is our public gallery. We'll look at this towards the end of my presentation. But for now, let's click on My Renderings, and it takes you to all the renderings that you have done. On this page, the renderings are organized by projects. So this is the name of your Revit project. This is another project. Here I have another project. And it shows you all the renderings that you have done. Typically, it'll show you the latest renderings. But if you want to look at all the renderings that you have ever done, just click on All. And then, you will see all the renderings that you have done in this project. That's how it's organized under the My Renderings page. So now basically we'll look at what are the different types of renderings that can be done using the cloud rendering service that we have. So the first type is a still image, like the image that we just rendered from Revit. It's, as you can also see that it's progressing over here. So I'm going to click on an existing image just to show you how it looks. So these are the thumbnails up here on the top. When you click on one of them, it shows you a preview image. And then with this button over here, it is going to give you the options that are available for this particular image. So as you can see here, I can download this image. If I click on download, it basically just saves. It basically just saves this image to my desktop. So you have the option of downloading an image and saving it to your desktop, but it is all your images are always available on the My Renderings page. And now I'll show you what are the other types of renderings that are available from here. So you can, from the product directly from Revit, you can render the different types of images, or you can come here and click on the thumbnail, go to Render As. Let's look at Panorama first. So if I click on Panorama, you'd see a new window open up here. Now, what is a panorama? Before I show you these options, let's take a look at an example that I have rendered already. A panorama is a 360-degree view of your rendering. It is rendered from the camera that was selected. It basically consists of 6 images which are stitched together, and you get a complete 360-degree view of your rendering. And you can preview this in your browser. And with a panorama, also again have the option of downloading the panorama. So when I click on download, I can download it as an HTML viewer. What this will do is it will download the panorama file as an HTML file, and then I can basically embed this on my website or send it to people or save it locally too. So let's look at the options now. So if I click on Render As, Panorama, the render settings window basically just opens up. Here you have the option of choosing an environment for your rendering. For now, let's leave it at none. I'll talk about it. And then you can set your render quality like I had mentioned earlier. It can be standard or it can be final. I also have the same exposure settings that I had for the still image, and then also set the width. Now, speaking about environment, if I leave it at none, it's going to use the existing environment that's there in your Revit file. And then you also have these other options. What are these? These are HDR files. And if you choose one of these options, it's going to use an image-based lighting environment, and your existing sun and sky will not be used. It's going to use this image instead to light your scene. So you have the option of doing that if you want an image-based lighting. If not, then just leave it at none. And click on Start Rendering. And again, depending on, depending on how big your image is, it'll show you how many cloud credits are required. And then you click on Start Rendering, and it's going to start rendering, and it'll pop up a thumbnail at the end over here. So those are the options for a panorama. Now let's look at a stereo panorama. So you have the option of rendering as a stereo panorama. So a stereo panorama is similar to a panorama, but now you have two images. Let me click on one that I have rendered already. So what you can see here are, with a stereo panorama, you get a set of images. One is for the left eye and one is for the right eye. And the idea here is that this image can be viewed on your mobile device or your phone, and along with VR goggles such as Google Cardboard. And when you view this on your phone using these VR goggles, what you get is a completely immersive 3D panoramic view. So it's not really easy to demonstrate this in the webinar, but I'll just show you what I mean. So a Google Cardboard is a device like this. So once you render your panorama and send it to your mobile device and click on the link and open it, what you would see is you would see two images, one for the left eye and the right eye. And then you place your device in this VR headset, and when you view it through the VR headset, you will get an immersive 3D panoramic experience like here. So in order to do that, let me show you what are the rendering options for this, right? So I click on, so the way to do this is, the steps basically to do this is, you'd first render a still image, and once it appears here in your gallery, in My Renderings, you click on this and say Render as Stereo Panorama. I click on Render as Stereo Panorama, and then I see these render settings. Once again, it's similar to the panorama. You have the choice of either choosing an environment or not, and set your exposure settings. And the render quality is set to final right now because we are offering this service free till May 31st. So you don't need any cloud credits, 0 cloud credits for a final stereo panoramic rendering. So, I would urge you to try this out and play with it till May 31st. It's free. It doesn't cost any cloud credits. And give us your feedback. Let us know what you think about this feature. It's really great for showing off your interior spaces, for client presentations, and all of that. You can also visit our blog to see how people are using this and the success that they have had with it. Now moving on, the other type of rendering that I wanted to talk about was solar study. That again, you can just click on an image, say render as solar study, and create a solar study rendering. Let me bring one up here to show you what it looks like. So let's play this and watch this rendering. So in this animation that we are seeing right now, you can see that the sun's position is gradually changing throughout the day, and from basically morning to evening, it's an animation of the sun's position throughout the day. So basically, what happens here is, if I look at the settings, I say render as solar study. Okay, yeah. So this, you can once again, this you have to do it, render this through the gallery. You click on render as, say, solar study, And the location of your model is picked up from your Revit file. You would set that in your Revit file. And then you can come in here and select a date of when you want to see this rendering. Set a start and end time. And let's set an interval of, let's say, 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, starting from 8 a.m. to roughly 8 p.m., is going to render an image. So there are 25 frames. And then basically show you an animation of the sun's position throughout the day. So this is useful for lighting designers or maybe for interior designers, anyone who wants to get an idea of how daylighting is going to look in their interior space. How much light is coming in? Does, all the openings and stuff that you have provided, is it adequate? Are you getting adequate sunlight or not? It might also be useful for exterior renderings where you want to study, for a particular month, how does the sun behave throughout the day. So I think it's useful for daylight analysis. It's useful for probably lighting designers or interior designers. So that's one. Another type of rendering that you can do using the render service is Illuminance renderings. So Illuminance renderings basically display the units of brightness in false color. They indicate the incident light on a surface, basically how much light hits the surface. And it's represented, in this particular image, it's represented in foot candles, but you can render it and represent this value either in foot candles or in lux. And so basically, the renderer gets information from your Revit model about the mesh, about the lights, the materials, etc. And then we calculate these illuminance values. Again, this kind of rendering is very useful for lighting designers to check the lighting levels in your design. It is also useful for LEED certification of buildings. Or if you want to understand how much natural light is entering your space and whether you need to add additional artificial lighting and so on. So in order to render out this kind of a rendering, again, you can do it directly from the Revit product, or which also has the same settings, or you can come here and say render as Illuminance, and then you see your render settings. The analysis, like I said, even for solar study, it uses your model's location, which comes from your Revit model. You set your date and time here. The units can be chosen to be either foot candles or lux. You would, set all these settings. The sky model that we use is the Perez all-weather sky model, and I think there are other options available here too. And from what I know, these kind of renderings traditionally take a really, really long time, but now with this service available, you can render them on the cloud and get these renderings much faster. So you save time, and because it's on the cloud, you're not blocked. You can keep working on your project while the rendering happens in the background. I mean, rendering happens on the cloud. These are the important, types of renderings: images, panoramas, stereo panoramas, solar study, and illuminance models. Something else that we also offer, which is more useful for products or product designers, is a turntable rendering. So I have a turntable rendered here. What a turntable is, basically, it's an animation where you set the pivot almost at the center of your model, and it gives you a 360-degree view of your model. So you get an all-round view, again useful for presentations. And the options to set this up are basically pretty simple. You click on an image, you say render as turntable. The render settings window opens up, and you have two options here, either 6 frames or 36 frames. The more number of frames you have, your animation is going to look smoother and better, but if you don't want those many frames, you can choose 6 frames. Set your render quality to standard and final. Depending on what you set, it's going to show you how many cloud credits are required. And then start rendering. So that's how you would render a turntable. Pretty easy settings here. So these are basically the different types of renderings that you can that the service offers you. And after let's just click on a render a still image. So after you render something, if you're not satisfied with how it's looking, you want to make some changes, or you have rendered it in the standard quality and you want to render a final rendering, what you can do is click on an image and say re-render using new settings. Now this window that opens up gives you similar options like you saw in Revit. You have the option of choosing an environment, render quality, exposure settings, file format. This is pretty similar. We already talked about all of this. But something important here is image size. When you choose, when you start rendering from Revit, the only option you have is you can choose your image size in megapixels. You can't really set your height and width. Those options are not available from Revit. But if you're looking, for a picture where you want a certain aspect ratio, like you don't want the standard 4:3, you want a widescreen aspect ratio, or you exactly know, how high, what is the width and height of the image that you're looking for, then this is the place where you would come and set those settings. So I can, render an image as wide or as set the height and width basically over here. So sometimes we get these questions about people asking, how do I, render an image with a specific with a specific width and height. So you can't really do it from Revit. You would have to come to the My Renderings portal and then set it here. Also, instead of Revit, like if you're rendering from AutoCAD, it's the same thing. You don't really have an option of setting your height and width. There again, you would first render a standard image from the product, then come here to this page and set your height and width. So I thought I should point this out and show you that you can go to a custom aspect ratio and choose your height and width the way you want to set it. So these are options available right here. And once again, depending upon how big your image is and what is your aspect ratio, it's going to use those many cloud credits. So that's one of the important options, re-render using new settings. We already talked about downloading an image. You can also delete an image if you don't want to see it appear in your queue. And then you have the option of adjust exposure. So what does this do? Excuse me. So if I click on adjust exposure, I can come in here and change the exposure values for this particular rendering. Like you wouldn't have to, you don't have to really go to Photoshop to set this. You can set it up here, and once I click apply, it's going to render the new image. So it will keep your old image and also render a new image with the new exposure settings. And what it does is it doesn't do a re-render. Basically, it just processes this image with these settings that are shown here. And so it's very quick since it doesn't really do a re-render. But you don't lose your old render. It doesn't overwrite your old file. So you still have your old exposure settings, and then you can come in here, tweak the values the way you want it, preview it, and then hit apply. And it's going to save a new image for you. So that's about exposure settings. And then, yeah, something else that I wanted to talk to you about was about sharing your rendering. So you can choose an image that you really like and click on Share Rendering. What this does is when I click on Share Rendering, it gives me the option of sharing this image on the gallery, in the gallery, which is our public gallery. And you can do it at an image level, like select a particular image and share it either on the gallery or Facebook. Or if you want to, you like everything, all the renderings here, you might want to share this entire project. So that option is available up here. You click on Share Project and share it to the gallery. Now, once you share it, where does it go? It goes into the public gallery, which is here. So let's click on the gallery, and sharing images on the gallery in the gallery is a good way of sharing all your renderings and showing it off in the community. Once people share their images in the gallery, you can, there's also a comment box. People can comment on it. You can look at other people's renderings, ask them questions, how they did something that you really liked, or it's a good way of getting feedback from your peers, and also a good way for for users to find out how someone did something. So you feel free to ask questions, feel free to post your images to the gallery, and get feedback from each other and improve your renderings. So that's our gallery page. So if going back to our project, I showed you how to share a particular image and share it to the gallery. Another thing is if you render an image and you want to give us feedback about it, you can click on this link over here, which says tell us what you think, and here there's a star rating. You can also, there's a box where you can add comments, and these comments are linked specifically to this particular image. So if you have a problem or if you want to give us feedback about a particular image, then this is a great way to do that. And like I said, it's tied to that specific image. So feel free to enter your comments here, and we read these comments. We get back to the users if anyone has any question about the rendering, or if there is a problem and they want us to look at it. So this is a good way of giving us feedback. So going back to my presentation, very quickly, I just wanted to give you some tips to get great renderings. The first thing is basically if you are looking for photorealistic, high-quality renderings, then the trick is to use realistic textures. Don't just use the color map, but also use bump map and reflection maps. For example, this image that you can see over here, this user has used a reflection map. So you can see that his floor looks really nice because the floor doesn't look like a mirror. There are some parts of the wood that are not as reflective as the others, and it really gives a good realistic view. So that's one trick. Also pay attention to your light settings. For interior shots, you might want to use sunlight and artificial light, and also pay attention to the location and time of day if you're looking for a good rendering. And do a test in your Revit model, like turn on the realistic mode, and just make sure that the scale of your materials is correct, and make sure that, the way you've set your sun, you have enough light coming inside your space. And just check that in Revit first before you render. And then always render a test image. Don't directly render a final, render a test image, see if you like it, and then render a final image. And lastly, we have a blog. Also, we are very active on the forum, so if you have questions, definitely feel free to contact us there with questions. We also have a blog where a lot of times we post tips and tricks from our pro users, where they tell us, where they'll tell you, how they got beautiful renderings. So definitely follow the blog. Feel free to ask them questions directly of how they did something. And then I already showed you how you can give us feedback through the gallery about specific images. And then this is our support email, support.autodesk360.rendering@autodesk.com. And you can reach out to us if you have any problems, questions, or any other feedback that you want to give us. With that, I think that's all I wanted to talk about in the webinar. And I believe we have questions. So, it's Q&A time right now.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate it. Great presentation. Before we do go ahead and start our questions, Q&A portion, again, I see a lot of you have entered questions in the box already, so some of them will be addressed, but we'll read a couple aloud as well. So please do continue to add all of your questions in there, and we'll get to them during this portion of the webcast. But first, I did want to just take a quick poll of while we have everyone here and while everyone's doing their questions. So our first poll that you guys see on the screen is, do you currently use A360 Cloud Rendering services? Just take a moment to respond there. It's just a quick yes or no. Give everyone a moment or two to respond. Okay. All right. Our next question is just about what design software you currently use. Trying to get an idea there. Did everyone respond? Okay. Our next question is, again, we do ask a lot of these questions just be in polling just because we want to make sure that we're delivering relevant content. So the next question is just around the content of the presentation and making sure that it is relevant to your profession and that you found value in it. So you can add a couple to respond there. That'd be great. Okay, and the last question. Again, we want to deliver valuable content, valuable webcasts, so if there is anything else that you would like to see as far as presentations, whether it's around A360 rendering, whether it's other topics, we would love to know that. So it is an open-ended box, so I'll give you guys a little bit of time to just fill in your answer there. While you're doing that, I'm going to grab a couple questions here. Okay, all right, now we'll get to the good part, which is the Q&A portion. So let me read our first question here. Let's see here. All right, first question is, sorry, I forgot a little. I'm a student rendering in the cloud, and I created a custom brick material. Excuse me. When I rendered in the cloud, the brick size is huge. When I rendered inside Revit, the brick wall looked fine and everything is to scale. Why am I seeing differences in my renderings? So I'll go ahead and tip that off to you if you'd like to answer.
Yeah, so if, regarding material scale, sometimes what happens is depending on which version of Revit you're using, if you don't have the latest Revit update, this might happen. So I want you to make sure that you install the latest Revit update. And once you do that, the problem should be solved. And you can preview it, I think, within Revit. There is a realistic mode, and you can preview it there. And again, if you comparing a local render with cloud render is not always the correct workflow, because the local render is Mental Ray, which is a different rendering engine, and A360 Cloud is a different engine. So there might be some differences here and there. But if you notice, after getting the Revit update, if you still see issues or problems, then contact us via the support email, and we'll have to look at your specific file to see what's going on.
Okay, excellent. All right. The next question is in the past, when I tried to download an interactive panorama to my local computer, it only downloaded a series of stills. When downloading Panorama, is there a way to view it as a true interactive panorama, like it's when viewed directly in A360 Rendering?
Yeah, so when you download a regular panorama, not a stereo, if you download a regular panorama, you can download it as an HTML file. So when it comes as an HTML file, you can look at that file in the browser. And it will work well with a Chrome browser and also with Firefox, I believe. That you might run into problems with Internet Explorer. So this can be a browser issue. It will definitely work really well on Chrome. So after you download your panorama, try previewing it on Chrome, and it should work well. There shouldn't be any problem.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next question. Why do renderings appear differently, such as colors, materials, etc., when they are rendered in the cloud versus locally?
Yes, so I think I kind of already answered this one. So when you render locally, it uses Mental Ray, which is a different renderer. And when you render on the cloud, it's the A360 Cloud Rendering, which is a different renderer. And since these are two different renderers, the colors and materials might look a little different. Even lighting will look a little different. So, like different products are different, so they're not exactly ever going to match. A good workflow here is instead of comparing a local with cloud, what you should do is render in standard quality first, just to preview everything and make sure it looks good. And once you're happy with your the standard rendering might be a little noisy, and it's not the best quality, but it will give you a really good idea of the material scale, of the lighting, of colors. All of that will be same. So you render in the standard quality, which is 0 cloud credits, doesn't cost you anything, and then go to final. That's a good workflow.
Excellent. Okay, next question. What other file types can be rendered besides Revit files?
In today's webinar we talked about Revit, but this service is also available through the AutoCAD product. So if you're an AutoCAD user, you have a 3D model, you can render in cloud from AutoCAD. You can also render from Navisworks and InfraWorks, also from Fusion if you're a Fusion user. We also have cloud rendering in Fusion. So those are basically the products where cloud rendering works.
Excellent. Okay, next question. How does one define material references when rendering luminescent images?
So the material properties, whether they are used for still renderings or for Illuminance images, the material properties are the material properties that you set in Revit. So for every material, like let's say you're talking about glass or any surface that's reflective, if you click on the material and then go and look into the properties, there is a reflectance value for the material. Let me see if I can bring it up here. So if you click on that, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, there. So if, for instance, in the material browser, if I'm looking at glass, I select the glass material, I click on appearance, and here you can see the reflectance value. So this is where you would set the value. So you would set all your properties of the material, you set it in Revit, and we get it from Revit. So whether we are rendering still images or Illuminance images, the material properties basically come from Revit.
Excellent. The next question is, I was curious if Autodesk was working on enabling tint settings as well as reflectivity settings in the slide bar with Revit. Right now they don't render online.
Yes, I think we had an issue with tint settings, and if I'm not exactly sure of the answer here, but I think we had an issue earlier with certain versions of Revit. And once again, if you're using, let's say you're using Revit 2014, make sure that you have the latest update. Once you get the latest update, your material issues should be solved. And I think we did have an issue with the tint setting, and that was fixed, I believe. So once you get your latest Revit update, you will see that things are working. If if my information is not correct, and you can contact the support email and I can get back to you. But I believe getting the latest Revit update should fix the issue.
Excellent. And this next question, I think you kind of answered already, but I'll just read it aloud, is can you render using A360 with Revit LT?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay, next. I think it's available in product. Like if you, the local render may not be available in Revit LT, but cloud rendering is.
Great. Okay, next question. Can you use custom textures in cloud rendering?
I think what they mean is, can you use custom texture maps for materials? Yes, absolutely, you can.
Okay. Next question, does a linked model get uploaded to the cloud when I do a cloud rendering?
Yeah, so if your Revit file contains linked models, then yes, when you say render in cloud, then basically all of that information is transmitted to the cloud. So we don't, like I had mentioned in the webinar, we don't really have access to your Revit file as such. So we never really get your complete Revit file with us, but we basically have this intermediate format, file format, which we use for rendering. So we get, when you say render in cloud, it creates this intermediate file format and then uploads that file to the cloud server. So we never really get your actual Revit file because, that's something that you own. But yeah, to answer your question about linked models, yeah, that should work. If you have a linked model, yes, we get that information and it'll work with cloud rendering.
Excellent. We see the next question is, we see a few renders with light emitting from can lights. How do you show light emitting from light sources rather than just the light affecting surfaces it hits?
So I think for light emitting surfaces, you need emissive materials. I am not sure if we support that. I can get back to you about it. Right now, okay. I don't remember what that or not. So I'm sorry, but I will make sure that we answer your question. We'll get back to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, looks like there's just a few more questions here. The next one is, I have seen noisy or grainy renderings sometimes. What is the best way to get the best quality renderings?
Okay, yeah. So what happens is, we are trying to keep the render settings really simple so that it's accessible and anyone can use it. And we don't have a ton of settings that you need to learn about and read about, right? As far as the render quality is concerned, there are just two settings available, standard and final. So if you render in the standard quality, because it's a really quick rendering, the rendering can be grainy. So one of the reasons for a grainy rendering can be that you have rendered it in standard quality. Then in spite of rendering, sometimes it happens that in spite of rendering in final quality, people don't get good results. So if that is happening, then the reason for that is you probably don't have adequate lighting in your scene. Like if it's an interior shot and you don't have enough sunlight coming in from the window, or if it's really a dark space, you don't have enough artificial lighting. So if the lighting levels in your scene are really low, and if it's a really dark scene, then yes, it will be noisy. So a workaround for that is to make sure that you have adequate light coming into your scene, increase your light levels. So if you increase your light levels and render in final quality, you will see the noise go away. So most of the times the issue related to noise is because of inadequate lighting. So if you take care of that, it should go away.
Okay, great. Next question, does Rendering Cloud use a specific render engine?
Yes, it is. There's no real name for it. It is A360 Rendering, and that is, it's Autodesk's own rendering technology. It is not Mental Ray or any other renderer. So A360 Rendering is a different renderer. It's different from your local renderer, and it is. The name is A360 Rendering. Yes, it is a different renderer.
Next question is, how many cloud credits does it take to create a rendering?
Yes, so the number of cloud credits required basically varies depending on your settings. So for a typical case, if you're rendering a 1 megapixel image in final quality, you'll need 1 cloud credit. So that's the formula. It's 1 cloud credit per megapixel. And that's how it is right now. It could change in the future, but for now you can think of it that way, that it's 1 cloud credit required for rendering 1 megapixel image. And 1 megapixel is like 1000 by 1000, right?
Okay, great. Okay, next question. When downloading panoramas as JPEGs, is there a viewer available to view these? I like being able to download and edit the images via Photoshop rather than just having them HTML downloaded from the cloud. If so, can this be shared with clients?
So if you like I said, if you download it as an HTML, you can view it in the browser. But if you download it as a JPEG, right now I'm not sure where it can be viewed. You can certainly view it in the gallery, like I just showed you. Let's just go to the gallery page. Like you can view it right here. If you want to share it with your class, you can share this publicly, and then it would be shared with everyone, and it will appear in the gallery, and you can view it there. But offhand, I don't know if there's any other viewer available for it.
Okay.
I could find out and get back to you, but right now I don't know.
Okay, excellent. Okay, looks like we have time for about one more question. So in some programs, adding lights one by one is the best way to get a good final lighting. Is that also recommended in Revit renderings?
If you're using the rendering basically to test your lighting, then yeah, that can be a good way. But like I said, if you don't have adequate lighting to begin with, like if you just have one light in a room, you may not get the best view, right? You may not get a really good rendering. It might look noisy because that amount of light is not enough for that space. So that could happen. But what you could do is if you're just trying to judge the colors of lights and want to see how the light behaves with certain materials or textures in your scene, then you could add a few lights, render in standard, see how it looks, and keep adding. Yeah, definitely you could do that in Revit.
Okay. All right, wow. Well, I thank everyone for all of your questions. And again, for those of you who we did not get to, we will compile a list and include the aggregated list of follow-up in a follow-up communication of the answered questions. You also have some resources there that you can contact as well for other questions, and then also viewing the gallery and just getting more information in general. So I also want to remind everyone that this webcast was recorded and it will be sent to you via email early next week. I want to thank everyone again for attending our webcast, Communicating Your Design Vision with A360 Cloud Rendering and Revit, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much.